People overteach. They create too much content, not enough context.
Mm-hmm.
For an experience to do what it's designed to do, we have to create a lot of context. We have to let people know this is going to change your life if you play full out.
Mm-hmm.
Are they comfortable leaving a lot of things to arise in the room? Do they need more structure to help them feel safe? But no matter which of the three archetypes someone is, they should not overteach. We want to allow the group to generate a percent of the content in the room.
Yes. The magic really happens in the conversations around the content. And every single one of us at the beginning of our journey overtaught, but then you're controlling the situation that they don't even know that they need.
Retreats create this sense of intimacy that not much else can parallel. When you're on retreat and you're in person and it's a well-facilitated retreat, obviously, the level of trust is so much higher. If someone walks out, they're vibrating differently than when they walked in.
Welcome to today's episode. I'm super excited. We're talking about retreats today, and I have invited Darla LeDoux along to chat to us and take us through why retreats are such an amazing part of a business model, I guess. So, Darla, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. Let's dive straight in because I like to do this. It's like this gives us more time to discuss retreats. What really makes them such a powerful container for deep transformation compared to other delivery models, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that pops to mind is when we think about having a retreat as part of your business model is retreats create this sense of intimacy that not much else can parallel. And, we all work so hard. Podcasting is one way to create intimacy, right? You can listen, have someone's voice in your ear, but when you're on retreat and you're in person and it's a well-facilitated retreat, obviously, the level of trust is so much higher. The way that I teach something called retreats that shift the field. So it's really that when someone walks out, they're vibrating differently than when they walked in. And the other piece of that is when we're in that higher alignment, right? Like I believe we're all here walking this path as business owners to help bring us back to who we are, to further align with our soul purpose. And so when someone's on the other side of your retreat, they are more sovereign, they're more connected to their yes and no, and they're more able to see a possibility that they can invest in with you to grow their business, right? So it really is a win-win.
Oh my goodness, I'm so loving the depth of where this is going already. Let's take one little step back because you are an intuitive guide, but you started out as an engineer. What was the moment that you made that shift and really realized that this was your calling, not just with the retreat work, but in this deep alignment work, this intuitive work, becoming a guide, because there's very different from engineering.
It is. It is. I feel like I'm an unlikely advocate for intuition over here. There's a couple key moments. I was trained as a coach in corporate. So I worked at Procter & Gamble. I was in the product development department, and I was nominated for this role to be a coach within the organization, helping people work well together. And we were trained via retreat-based training. And while on retreat, we did an exercise where I saw a truth that I had no idea about. I realized that I had these biases about men that were affecting how I was showing up at work. Mm-hmm. And in the space, I was able to, one, admit that. I didn't even know that that was there. And then embrace it and start to see what else could be possible. And so in that process, I thought, why doesn't everybody know this? Why are we not talking about this all the time, that we have filters that are affecting how we show up and we don't even know it? And I knew in that moment that that was what I would prefer my life to be about. I was engineering fake juice at the time, and I called to something more. That was a first moment. A second moment was I had been through divorce and I was dealing with, I knew I wanted to be a coach. I still wasn't doing it. And I was dealing with some debt from my wedding and all of the things that I had paid for. And I talked to a spiritual guide, and I don't know that she said anything in particular, but as I was driving home, my car swerved on the highway as I was thinking about the different ways I could solve the problem. And I didn't do it. It happened spontaneously as I was thinking through these options. And so I don't know how, but something in me said, what were you thinking about exactly when that happened? And I went back to that and I followed that path and I took some financial actions. And within a couple of weeks, Samantha, I had a new job. I wasn't still at Procter and Gamble at this time. I had a new job that was paying significantly more. And then my company got bought and I got a buyout package all within a short period of time. So like I followed weird intuition and it led to the world opening for me. And so I would think that I would have been a fanatic about it by then, but I was kind of embarrassed. I was like, I can't tell people that my car swerved on the highway and I used that as a sign to change my life. And so it wasn't until years into coaching where I was working with a specific client who was raised Catholic and she was learning how to trust her energy. I just remember where I was while I was on this session with her, and I realized, wait, this is all there is for me, is that energy is real and it's guiding us and it's spiritual. And I've never said this out loud, and it probably took me another year or two to weave it into my marketing. But I remember that moment where I claimed it for myself.
It's such an incredible feeling, isn't it? When you fully lean into who you're meant to be. I remember I didn't start talking about like the energy work that I do now until about 2020, I think. Maybe it started seeping in. And I'd been working like this since the early 90s. But I had this story that people wouldn't take me seriously because I trusted my intuition or I used my energy or the guidance from my body. I thought that, the story I was making up was everyone will think, oh, well, she's a bit silly, like she won't know anything if that's what she believes. So it does take a while or it can take a while to step into that. I think especially for those of us that had very logical careers. So I love that you trusted that guidance.
I remember being in a business mastermind. This was while I was just starting to think maybe I could come out as spiritual. And my coach at the time had gone to a VIP day with another coach. She had bought a private retreat and came back and reported that the first thing she did was had her pull an oracle card. And then she rolled her eyes and made fun of this coach and was like, I knew right then I wasn't going to learn anything. It kind of call this the cycle of proving, right? When we start to move in a certain direction and then something shows up to validate our fear of like who we've been trying to prove ourselves to be. And it was immediately after I said, okay, I'm a spiritual coach, she came back with that experience. And I thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't tell anyone.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you did. Let's start off from the retreat. What are the key ingredients that create that real transformation as a retreat host? Because I think that a lot of people can get thought in the thought of let's just have this nice weekend getaway. And really that's not what it's about. So how do we fully lean into creating that real transformation?
Yeah, I'll talk about it at two levels. So at the higher level, if we're taking a bird's eye view of someone in their business and they get that call to host a retreat. And like you said, a lot of times people get granular, like where is the location? And they go to the details, which aren't as important. They're important, but they're really not that important if you show up in your magic. But so from a big picture in a business model, I teach something called the anatomy of a transformation. And there's 3 stages. The first is commit, the second is shift the field, and the third is integrate. And so the commit stage and the integrate stage are outside of the retreat, right? It's like what happens before and what happens after. But when I work with people, knowing what that is helps define what the retreat is. So if you go somewhere and people, I get so many examples of this. Oh, we're having a retreat in Italy. We rented a fabulous villa and we have a chef.
Yeah.
And that's the invitation, right? And people are like,
Yeah.
well, sure, I've been wanting to go to Italy. Let me go. And people aren't coming with the same intention or any intention necessarily other than to go on vacation. I just was registered for a retreat that got canceled, and I kind of had like a spidey senses that it wasn't going to fly because nobody had asked me my intention for the retreat. So I figured that was probably the case with other people as well. So the commit stage that happens before the retreat is a guided process to help someone look at what is it that I really want? Like if my vibration could align with anything, what is that? What am I playing for? Where am I now and the discomfort in that, right? So like the typical thing we think of with marketing, what's the discomfort and the gap and how committed am I? Not just to getting the result, but if I know that between me and the result is seeing something, I do this with my hand by my head, like seeing something that's hidden from my view, that is the path to get from here to there, right? There's some energy pattern that's maybe stuck in your field, in your body, that you believe is true, but it's really based on a lie or it's not in alignment for you. In order to get that result that you want, we're going to have to take a look in the shadow. And so in the commit stage, we want to make sure people know that. They don't have to know what it is. They just they have to trust that you can help them with it, help guide it, but that they want something that's greater than their fear of looking at what's been in the way, because I'm sure you know it's often tender and vulnerable to see what's been hidden from our view or how have we been showing up that's actually been in conflict with our goal.
Totally.
And so rather than just say, come to Italy, or I have a great speaker, or you like me, don't you want to come to my retreat? You want people to have a clarity of purpose and an awareness that they're going to go deep when they walk in the room. And then you want to consider your integration. I won't talk too much about that, but what happens after the retreat, because they're going to leave in a whole new vibration. And then they'll go home to the environment that the old version of them created. And that's probably going to cause some friction, right? So you want support after to help someone actually go do the thing. So there's being in harmony with the outcome, and then there's taking the actions. And so that's what integration is about. So before someone decides what their retreat is about, because people have so many great ideas, like we could probably brainstorm 1,000 good retreat ideas.
Right now, exactly.
Yeah, because like it's so fun. And people can get off track with that. The goal of the retreat then is to shift the field. So the goal of the retreat is whatever energy is out of harmony with the goal that you want gets transmuted. So that's stage 1, right? Is just to know in my retreat, if I'm doing a painting retreat or a dance retreat or a breathwork retreat or whatever the modality might be, that we're really shifting their energy. And then within the retreat itself, there's a few structures I teach, but the main one that I'll highlight is there are these anchor experiences. So if you've ever done a journaling exercise, for example, where you journal what you want and what you think the problem is, or you even journal about when's the last time you were annoyed in your life, right? We could use that. because anything place where we're annoyed or we're triggered, it's showing us an energy pattern that we haven't healed.
Mhm.
So we could go journal about that and we might get somewhat accurate reflection of how we behave. But you know how witnesses never actually describe the scene thoroughly, like in an accident or something like that. They studied that we make stuff up, right? So we aren't that great at accurately assessing ourselves. And so on the first day of retreat, I help people to create an experience that's going to be an energy revealing experience. There's so many ways to do this. You can get creative, use different modalities based on your magic, which I have everybody uncover what their magic is. But there's something experiential where we get to see ourselves and go, oh, I see how my being was resonant with that result. So whether it's a game or a team activity or something personally challenging, but there's some experience on the first day to help us access a truth that's been hidden from our view.
I love that. How do you work out what that piece is when you're actually on retreat? Like, how is it that you choose what it is that's going to bring that hidden piece of you out?
So if I'm working with a retreat host, how do I help them find
Yeah.
that exercise?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, the first thing we do, we tap into this, what I call the soul of their retreat. And I use visualization and I guide people through a visualization process that's going to give them something of the energy of the experience. So there's like an arc, right? I love a 3 day, but you could do a 5 day. You can do different patterns and still create this 3 part arc. So when they do this visualization, they're feeling into the energy of this arc. So for some people, they will get a download of here's the exercise, and they just know this first anchor experience. It just comes through. For others, they might see a location, and then we build from that location and what's available. I'm a big advocate for not overcomplicating. So let your location inform you. Or if you get the exercise first, then that's going to be the screener for your location. Like if that exercise is hard to do at that location, it's no. So we tune into the soul of it. And it's a spiritual process because I'll give you an example. I did a retreat called Retreat and Grow Rich Live. I did it probably 10 times. And every single time I did it, it was totally different, even though the curriculum was exactly
Yeah.
because the energy of who I was drawing in based on my own journey of transformation was different every time. And so the soul of the retreat is going to attract the people that are going to be resonant for me right now. So it's really, really important that we know that and we design from there. Aside from that, some of the standard marketing things like what is your ideal client avatar? What are they struggling with? What is a typical pattern? If your people are in relationship and they've been parents and now they're empty nesters, and perhaps there's fear of intimacy, and you know that, right? So then you would design something around intimacy, like we're a couple alone together for the first time in 20 years.
Yeah.
So we really take into account the themes and the patterns that their clients have.
I love that so much. Let's move on to the integration piece because I find this personally is something that many retreat hosts don't think about. They create this amazing retreat and then it's like you're led out into the wild. And I can think specifically of a retreat that I went on and it was it was out of the city. And I remember driving back into the city and I started to get more and more agitated. By the time I had to go back into delivery phase the next day with my clients, I was like a cat on a hot tin roof. I didn't know who I was, where I was. I was like really agitated and anxious. Can you talk to us about the integration phase? Because since that particular experience that I had, I've always thought there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, I really relate to that. I went to a Hay House event where they had all the different speakers, and it was 2 days, and all you could buy was a book, you know. So people had bags of books, and as it was getting close to the end, I started feeling anxious, and then I realized it was the energy in the room because everybody now just learned 20 different areas of their life that are messed up that they want to fix, and all they have is a book. You know? So, yeah, it's so important because the way that I teach and the way I facilitate, we leave with what I call our sourced energy, which is a series of words, like 1 to 3 words. It could be an archetype. That's a descriptor of what is the energy I'm embodying now. So on the other side of this transformation, I am beloved queen was one of mine at one point. So now, on day 3, we're going to think through as beloved queen goes home, where is the resistance going to be? So you start that on the last day of the retreat. So people are really prepared for it. I have a certification program, and within that, I teach something called the cycle of proving, which is basically inevitably you're going to go home and the exact thing that you're afraid of is going to happen in some form. And so we equip people with tools to go, okay, I see you, I'm not afraid. But beyond that, to me, I always have a container of support, right? If you know being in your new energy is going to be really hard when you get home, stay connected to the people on retreat who know you,
Yeah.
who know who you just created yourself to be, who can remind you who you are when you forget, because it's inevitable that it's going to happen. And then the other thing I believe is post retreat, we're on fire to implement. So, course completion can be a big topic in our space. Like if you have a course or a program and people drop off or they don't do the homework and then they feel bad about themselves, having a retreat that's strategically placed that raises the vibration and has people out executing in a way that gets results, right? Because when we're in our aligned energy, we're magnetizing results, our direction. It goes such a long way to them actually getting the thing that you promise, right? So let's say it's a relationship retreat for someone who's having trouble dating, right? They haven't dated since their divorce or something like that. Then they need to go date, and they're going to attract all the things the old person would have, but they're going to respond differently. So having that group is really critical.
I love that.
And people can include that. You can include some integration in with your retreat, or it can be a separate optional upgrade at the end.
Yeah, nice. What's one mistake that you see people make when they're hosting a retreat that keeps the transformation shallow or transactional and not really getting that deep movement?
2 things come to mind. The first is the structure. So when we structure in these anchor experiences, and there's one that's likely on day 3, that's like claiming the new energy. Those 2 anchors, and then knowing everything in between is about the energy shift. So people overteach, right? They create too much content, not enough context. For an experience to do what it's designed to do, we have to create a lot of context. We have to let people know this is going to change your life if you play full out. So people overteach, they fill too much space. When you have a group that's coming together for a similar intention, there will be themes and threads. I know you've experienced with someone else asked the question that you really didn't even know you needed an answer to. And so we want to allow the group to generate a percent of the content in the room.
Yes.
And people, we're crazy about control. We want to make sure we know how it goes. We don't want anyone to think that we didn't give them enough. And so we teach. My first retreat, I had 182 PowerPoint slides. And
Oh,
now
wow.
now I have a flip chart and roughly 4 key conversations that we have during
Yeah.
a retreat. And I have people identify their content archetype, so it helps them know, are they comfortable leaving a lot of things to arise in the room? Do they need more structure to help them feel safe? Like, we help sort that out. But no matter which of the 3 archetypes someone is, they should not overteach.
Mm, mm. The magic really happens in the conversations around the content. And every single one of us has, at the beginning of our journey, overtaught, but then you're controlling the situation that they don't even know that they need. And so I love
Yeah.
it that you just have those 4 key areas that you know that you want to touch on, but you're allowing the retreat guests to create what it is that they need. And I think that's perfect.
The other part is that we've done our own transformational work, so we can hold space for stuff that comes up that might be uncomfortable, right? Because that's where the transformation is when someone is able to be fully in their truth and be witnessed and validated by the group. And that can just look like, I said the thing and nobody got mad at me. But we need to be able to go there. And so we can feel when the leader is safe, right? When they've done their work, or if it's edgy to go there. And you also demonstrate that by the way you tell your own stories and share vulnerably. But here we talk in terms of magic, and your magic will fire when there's, like, your spidey senses, when someone's not quite telling the truth. And if you're willing to, you can do it gently and with love and with play, bring forward, like, oh yeah, what was that there when your voice just cracked? Or you looked that direction, like, what's over there? So there's
Yeah.
coaching techniques as well.
Yeah, I love that. What are we trusting so that magic comes through?
Source. So my company's called Sourced. It's the belief that we are all divinely guided. And so not just us, like as the leader, but also the people in the room, that they have their own knowledge and wisdom. And I teach something called the transformational trinity, which is simply us, client, source. And that when we create that space and we are confident in that space, we know that whatever arises is not a problem. We don't relate to it as a problem. We relate to it as divine expression, revealing. It might be sticky, contrasty, but it's showing us something. So to me, I wouldn't be as confident as a leader if I didn't know that I know that I know that everything is sourced.
Love that. Let's flip to the business side, because I think there's this belief that we can't run a really deeply transformational retreat and a profitable retreat. What do we need to be able to do both? Because I know so many people run retreats, and I've done it as well, where you're just covering costs, and that's great because there's always something off the back end. So I never see that as a problem, but it would be great to run a profitable retreat as well. So how do we balance that?
Yeah. Well, I always consider the back end sales as part of being a profitable retreat. So I do that math. I'm deciding what level to answer from. One, we try to overgive to compensate for what we think is missing in us. And so sometimes we don't make, it could be a generosity decision. I want to send everyone to the spa. It could be a part of the curriculum. If the pattern that your people have is they have trouble receiving and nurturing themselves, then investing and sending them to the spa might be absolutely part of the curriculum. But if it's coming from, are they going to think I'm bad or mean or cheap if I don't give them everything? We don't want to do that. So we want to really make sure we're making clean decisions about where to spend money and not stressing about not spending money on some things. The second piece is It's a personal choice. Would I rather have people in the room so they get to shift their energy and then make an aligned decision about whether to invest in my higher level program, right? So to me, my back end programs are more high level, in which case you'd charge less and go with the break even pricing. I say you want to break even at half. If you're half full, you still break even. So you're not risking losing money. But that might be a perfectly good strategy if you don't want to do sales calls. If you want to be able to do a webinar or a little class and then have people come to your retreat. If you want to really enroll people, then I would say go 5K, 10K, 15K, like 20K, go a higher level and get on the phone with people. And then that's a choice. I want to make money on the front end, but someone's going to have that sales conversation with them.
So what I'm hearing is you need to decide whether you're going to make money from the retreat itself, or is it going to be almost like a lead generator to make the back end sales, but you have to decide one or the other. Love it. Love that.
Yeah.
So what about audience size for being able to run these retreats? Is it something that you have to wait until you're a certain, way into your business with a certain audience size? Is it something that you can do to build your audience? I'd love your take on this.
Yeah, this may not be totally popular, but this is what I've seen. So many people think I'm going to do all the things they say I have to do before I do my retreat. And so we are sitting home alone in our office trying to write a marketing funnel when we don't even know what our magic is. So I believe getting 6 people in your living room and facilitating transformationally is going to reveal to you more about who you are as a leader and what your magic is than working on lead gen over and over and over. That's my personal take. That said, audience size, I think I had 500 people on my list when I had my first 6-figure retreat. So, lists were different then too, in terms of more responsive, but you don't need a huge audience. You just need to bring truth forward in the way you market, right? So you're resonating with the people who go, oh shit, I have a hidden truth too. Like I sense there's something I'm not seeing that I want to get in the room to discover. So the more courageous you are to tell the truth in your marketing about your own journey and your own transformation and examples of transformation, the more you can monetize a smaller audience.
So off the back of that, how much are we talking about the logistics of the treat? As in, it's in Italy and we have a private chef.
Yeah.
How much of the marketing is about logistics and how much of it is about the transformation?
I would say 70-30. There will be people so 70% transformation, 30% details. And a couple of things about the details. Location can help. Like someone can go, oh, I put on my vision board that I want to go to Ireland and it's in Ireland. Obviously, I meant to go there. Like that happens. And transformation can happen anywhere. So for me, it's really about painting the picture of the breakthrough and the alignment that people want, and the location can change. The other piece about logistics that's important, when someone's going on retreat, they're really putting a lot of trust in you as the leader, right? It's vulnerable. You're going to meet all these new people. You want to have a sense of the level of care, if that makes sense. Like, am I going to be pampered? Do I need to be prepared to share a bathroom? Like getting people psychologically prepared for what that looks like. And then I always say, just outline the 3 days. If it's a 3-day, like the theme and like 2 sentences about the intention of that day. And then the theme of day 2 and a couple sentences about the intention. Like just that level of structure lets people know you've thought it through. that we're not just going to go do random things.
Yeah, whatever. We're going to just go with the flow.
Which, can be a thing that where people don't put enough structure. Most of the people I work with have too much structure, and I help them feel safe to trust themselves more. Or I should say, a lot of the people I work with are not very structured, think they should be more structured, and therefore are waiting for the day that they get it all together to have enough of an outline to trust themselves to have retreat.
What's one belief that you'd love to bust right now about hosting a retreat?
That they don't make money, that it's hard, and you can't make money with a small group. I've done big events, I've done 100-person events, and my team and I, we did the low ticket break even model. And my team and I spent 8 months preparing for this event. Whereas for me, having 16 people in a room, I've consistently made as much money as 100 people from 16 people. And it does not leave me depleted, right? We're depleted when we're doing new things and it's edgy and we're nervous and we're in resistance in some way. Which is going to happen every time we up level. That's going to happen. But really, you should be able to lead a retreat, and you don't want to plan a heavy day the day after, but you shouldn't feel completely drained. Like if you're too much responsibility and not letting source play in the room. So I guess that's the other thing I would say is that fear of intimacy being tiring.
Yeah, I feel that. Darla, this has been absolutely amazing. For people that are listening to you, definitely go and check out the Activating Magic podcast, where you hear Darla sharing all sorts of her wisdom. But I know that you've also got a free resource for people that are like, you know what? I want to run a retreat, or I want to upgrade my retreat. So can you just share a little bit about what you have?
Yeah, it's called the Ultimate 57-Point Checklist for World-Class Transformational Retreats. And there's actually more than 57, but we like the number 57. And it really walks through, venue concerns, team, like what support do you need in the room, what to think about in terms of experiences, location, that kind of thing. And there's a little love letter from me that is half of these things can be delegated, like more easily than you think. And half of them go away when you're tuned into the soul of your retreat. Like certain things become like NA. And so read the note at the bottom, but this will help you, move yourself forward and also realize there's a lot to consider, and there's a reason people are afraid, but to do the work, like you're courageous.
Absolutely.
So step into your courage.
I love that so much. So wherever you're listening, whatever app, whether you're on the website or the app or YouTube, just scroll down and you'll see the link for that checklist, and I highly recommend downloading that. Darla, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you today. I was just sitting here going, oh, I want to go on retreat with Darla. This sounds amazing. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and all of that information with us today. It's been fabulous.
Thank you.